What's up, YouTube? Brett Hoover from Rants here. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave that comment down below. Alright, so this is going to be our Spider-Man No Way Home review here on Rants or Us. Overall, I went into this movie thinking maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll be good. It seems like Phase 4 has really got me down on superhero flicks as of late. So, I really didn't know what to expect. There was movies that I thought were going to be really good that just kind of turned out to be But overall, I went into this movie with not high expectations, but high enough. And I was completely blown away. I was blown away. This is the best Marvel/Sony movie that has ever been made. Ever been made. I say it without question. This is the best. This is as good as a superhero flick can actually get. I really truly believe that. It was fun almost all the way through. Was it perfect? No, it was not perfect. But overall, when it needed to be good, it hit the right notes. Even excelled in a lot of different ways when it comes to that. But anyways, let me before I just gush all over this movie, let me get into the bad things that I feel like they could have worked on a little bit different to make it even better. And then things that I absolutely just loved about it. But let's get right on into it. Alright, the first 30 minutes of this movie were incredibly boring to me. Incredibly boring. Like I said, not giving anything away. It was just a lot less of Spider-Man and a lot more of Peter Parker trying to deal with a life where everyone knows who he is. It was incredibly stupid. I thought all the way through. It was a typical MCU humor that you expect from an MCU film, and it just didn't fit right. It didn't flow. It kind of felt a lot like Black Widow in that way, in that the humor seemed juvenile. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. It was really slow. Incredibly slow. Almost to a draw. It felt like this was going to be more of a relationship flick than it was a Spider-Man film. I couldn't believe, when I'm looking at it 30 minutes in, and I'm like, we hadn't even got this story going yet. And that could have been worked on. They could have delivered a better punch to it at the very beginning. Or at least 15 minutes in. I feel like at this point you don't need too many introductions. We should be seeing Spider-Man at his best going into it. This being, what is this, Tom Holland's third Spider-Man film. So, I feel like that was something that could have been better. Like I said, MCU jokes absolutely need to be retired at this point. They are so juvenile, so beneath the movie that they were trying to portray. There is so many points in this movie that it's like, okay, there's this really important, really satisfying moment that's happening, and then it's ruined by this joke that just comes out of nowhere. Like, it just feels like jokes that you would have like at a frat house, where then they're, it's being too serious and they're just trying to add just a little comedy, but it feels juvenile. This felt that way in a lot of ways. Felt a lot like Black Widow comedy, which it was bad all the way through. It wasn't as bad as the hysterectomy jokes that was on Black Widow, but it was on up there. It just never fit with this movie. I'll go without saying, I feel like the MCU needs to retire their jokes. Their jokes are just bad. They're just really, really bad. Another thing that probably, I don't know, after the movie ended, it was something that kind of bothered me a little bit. And I'm not going to give away too much spoilers when it comes to this, but I kind of felt like the whole premise of this movie was brought about by a very juvenile way of thinking from Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which has been a problem with Tom Holland's Spider-Man from the very beginning. He feels like a little kid. He acts like a little kid. His problems are little kid problems in a lot of ways. That was corrected by the end of the movie, but the way the premise of where the whole plot takes place, the beginning of it and the start of it, was really stupid. Really stupid in hindsight. Felt like they could have maybe changed that a little bit better. Made it when you've got something, when you're dealing with like the multiverse and all of that, I feel like there's cooler ways that you can bring it in than just, him trying to go to, Doctor Strange and try to, have a spell go wrong. I felt like that was incredibly, incredibly stupid. If it would have been for something a little bit more important, let's say, his Uncle Ben died and he wanted to go back and save him. Or, there is a really powerful death that changes his character in a lot of different ways in this. Now, if it would have been towards something like that, totally could have got it. But the reason behind the spell, which caused all of this chaos, all of this death, was really childish and stupid in a lot of ways, kind of a selfish way. And it ends up costing him in the end, but they really don't. They really don't focus on it, which is another thing I felt like they could have done, is focus on that he made this mistake and the people that paid for this mistake. I felt like that wasn't done well in this movie, of bringing it back to him having to own up to that. And we did have to own up to the mistake he did make in the movie, but not necessarily the spell gone wrong that led to this mistake. Another thing that is a problem with it is powers that just come out of nowhere. There's going to be a character in this movie that just gets a power for no reason whatsoever, and it feels like it doesn't serve a purpose. It just is there for like a joke and to give them meaning for being in this movie, and I just didn't like it at all. And another thing, my last kind of gripe on it, and it really shouldn't be a gripe, but it is. There's definitely a tier of villainy in this. When you got the Goblin in it, you got Sandman, you got the Lizard, you got Doc Ock, you've got all of these other guys in it, and there's definitely a tier that they've set for who is the top bad guys and who are just lesser bad guys. I didn't like that. I wish they would have maybe kind of kept it where they were all an equal level, all important in some ways, but a lot of them just kind of felt like they shouldn't have been in this movie. Sandman and the Lizard are two right off the bat that I just felt like just shouldn't even have been in this movie. You could have had the others, and it would have flowed a lot better. Just even the little bit of time that they spent with these characters, it didn't add to the story. It didn't take away from the story, but it just didn't, like I said, it just didn't add to it. It wasn't enough there. It wasn't enough there for them to be there in it. But now for the good. Fight scenes are incredible. Fight scenes are absolutely amazing in this film. Like I said, probably one of the best fight scenes in an MCU movie. They were just all over the place. Like, I was watching this thinking, oh man, is Spider-Man going to die? Like, and then I had to catch myself. I'm like, no, he's not going to die. But it sure did feel like he was in danger. And I stayed completely and totally focused in those scenes. Because it felt like there's a real danger to Spider-Man in each and every one of these action scenes, and they were perfect all the way through. Every action scene was at its best. It was probably the highlights of this film. Now, the villains, I did complain about, how Some villains probably shouldn't have been in there, like the Lizard and Sandman, but at the same time, they were really fleshed out to a certain extent. And I felt like this movie kind of was benefited by us already knowing who these characters are and going through the story of these characters, where they didn't really have to do a lot, but I felt like they did enough to kind of reintroduce us, maybe even show us different sides of those characters that we didn't know. Maybe even make us feel a little sorry for these characters, which I thought was amazing. It's something you usually don't do for, like comic book characters when it comes to villains. Or at least in Marvel films, Marvel has had such terrible villains that this movie really, I mean, when you start feeling something for these villains, each and every one of them, you start going, oh man, I can't believe this is a Marvel film, because I actually care about these people. I actually care about their plight. I care if they die. And that's something that I haven't felt with a Marvel film really since Endgame, in a lot of ways. But I mean, this movie, like I said, it benefits from us already knowing who the characters actually are. Now, as far as Tom Holland is concerned, I complained even in this video. I feel like Tom Holland has never lived up to expectations. He is in this movie at times annoying, especially in the first 30 minutes of it. But overall, I thought we saw some character growth in him. We really, I think, did see some character growth. He turned into the Spider-Man that we had been hoping he would turn into for, 3 movies now. He wasn't just kind of like all over the place, like, oh man, I'm excited about this, oh man, this, oh man, that. He didn't, after that first 30 minutes, he was like real legit when it come to adult Spider-Man. He's the Spider-Man you expect. He's a Spider-Man that can make the tough choices and do so without even contemplating, or feeling bad about the choices that he made. Someone that can own it. And I think that actually made this film in a lot of different ways, especially in the ending. The ending with him maturing a little bit and the choice that he had to make at the end of this film was heartbreaking. And he did so without whining or, feeling like regretful in any ways. He did it because he knew that to be a great superhero, you have to make really hard choices and you have to accept those choices. And he did it. So I feel like we've seen Tom Holland grow up before our eyes when it comes to Spider-Man. And as far as the Peter Parkers are concerned, I'm not a big Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I did like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. But seeing all of them on screen, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and, how they just flowed with each other, with Tom Holland. Really kind of felt like a brotherhood in a lot of ways. I almost would like to see a second movie with all three of them in it. Really would, because I feel like each and every single one of them adds a different flavor, a different mindset, a different way of thinking, a different personal tragedy in a lot of different ways. When, Andrew Garfield, his tragedy is with Mary Jane. With Maguire's is, Uncle Ben. And you'll find out, Tom Holland has a personal tragedy that affects him greatly at the end of this film. And I feel like each and every one of those tragedies really highlighted those particular characters in a great way. It really separated them. It really made them feel like a necessity in this movie. I don't think you could have done this movie without any of them. So I was really pleasantly surprised at how they juggled not only all the different villains, but they also juggled the Spider-Man in perfect order. Just perfect. And as far as the climax is concerned, the climax lives up to expectations. I mean, there was a build up in this movie, and that climax really was felt. It lived up to expectations. It was the climax that you would expect in a great film. I'm not just talking about an MCU film, but I'm talking about just a great film in general. How it has that perfect climax. It just seems like it just has everything that was in that film leading up to it, all the energy, all the emotion, um, and then adds a good action scene to go along with that. Um, I mean, it just, I feel like the ending of it just couldn't have been better. And then even once you got past, the main climax of it, and then you kind of get into the lull of, the aftermath of it. I almost thought the aftermath was better than the climax in a lot of ways, because I felt like the aftermath really, really set the tone for the growth in Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So I love that aspect about it. Um, and like I said, the choice he has to make in the end was heartbreaking. Um, Add that with the climax, and just how powerful all of those two things were. I feel like just those two things alone made this movie. The first 30 minutes might have been incredibly slow. The reason for the problem to begin with was kind of childish, and really could have been done better in that regard. But I felt like the climax, and then the action that went along with that, and then the summing everything up at the very end, I felt like really just was perfect and made the movie. It made us see that, hey, Tom Holland now is up to the role of being Spider-Man. Finally, is up to the role of being that. And of course, with the help of a little bit of fan service when it comes to, adding the villains that we've seen in previous Spider-Man films, and then adding, of course, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and all just gelled perfectly. Overall, I would give this movie about a 9 out of 10. That's how much I really enjoyed it. I would give it a perfect score, but I don't feel like any MCU film really needs a perfect score, and the first 30 minutes were really slow. You take that out of the equation, you've got a great, great film on your hands. But as far as the MCU is concerned, I feel like this is a great film. I feel like this is the best film that we've ever got. I am now truly, truly looking forward to the next Spider-Man film, more than I am anything on the slate for the MCU, even more than the Doctor Strange film. I am looking more towards the Spider-Man film than anything. Now, as far as Doctor Strange comes about, he does play a role in this movie. Very significant role. He doesn't get a lot of screen time, but he does have a really cool fight scene that I did truly enjoy. I think the him and Tom Holland fit well together in this movie. I thought they did really well in the back and forth between the two. Almost kind of like what almost a mentor. He took on that kind of role for Tom Holland Spider-Man in a lot of different ways, and was trying to teach him some things. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. But overall, I would give it a 9 out of 10. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. I tell you, I went in this movie thinking it's going to be good, but it turned out to be great. I'm really pleased by it. I can't wait for the next one. I can't wait to hear what y'all think in the comments down below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Y'all take care.